Okay, here we are. Test number 2. So basically, this is after I've taken my my templates and stuff, and I drew, placed them all where I needed them to be and stuff, and drew them out. So this is basically where you're going to start. I'm starting here because you guys start with a sunk shell, and with a pre-sunk shell, you're probably going to have to do some adjusting on the surface beforehand, and that's what I typically do as well. So basically what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start seeing these areas that are really curved still. I want to make this a little bit flatter. So I'm just going to go around and kind of sink the shell a little more and push out the areas where I want the notes to be a little flatter. And I also, at this point, am messing quite a bit with this because I've always got a lot here to push on the head of the note here because it's on the curve. So you got to mess with this area a whole lot usually. But I start down here low with the notes that are the worst and push this area out first. So without further ado, I usually try to avoid the area right here by the edge of the line of the note. I usually try to avoid that quite a bit at the beginning because you want to have a lot of metal here left to work with when you're tracing your note at the end. So I kind of try to stay away from it and keep my stretch more in here. Then kind of just, run this out so that it kind of follows that, but most of the pressure being put here in between. So I just kind of get, a little bit closer and then just kind of smooth it out and see where I'm at again. And I do this with the middle, with my medium gun. And I do it with this hammerhead. My hand kind of shows you the size of it. The curve is nice and smooth along the side, so I don't, edge it or do anything like that. Because if you put the edge of the hammerhead on the surface, you always got to make sure you're like perpendicular with the surface. Because otherwise, if you go like this, you're going to create a mark, and you don't want to create anything too hardcore because otherwise it won't come out towards the end. Sometimes the Sharpie collects on the plastic a little bit, so you kind of want to keep that a little bit clean. Boy, you can't see much of this, can you? I'll try to readjust the camera a little bit here. Maybe if I bring it down a little bit. Let's see if that helps. Alright, that's quite a bit closer. I'm okay with that, so I'm going to switch to the smaller gun to start doing my fine shaping. Well, not really fine shaping, but shaping nonetheless. Let's see, I had another head here I wanted to use. Yeah. And the head I'm going to use now is basically just a scaled down. Let's see if I can get the focus. It's like a scaled down version of that other one, except it's got a little bit more of a smoothed edge on this one. Every day it's good practice. A couple drops of oil. Extend the life of your tools. And now at this point, let's see if you're going to be able to, hope you're going to be able to see this. Let's see. Should be a little bit better for you. So I can scoot myself over a little. All right. So this is basically my start of my real shaping phase. So what I'm going to do for the most part is I'm going to use the corner of this, not flat on this. I'm going to use the corner of this to kind of push on the edge of the note and get this metal, get the metal here started pushing back. Because in order to make this note go flat, I've got to push up quite a bit here on the edge to get this metal out of the way so that the note will actually come flat. And the same thing here is I'm going to have to do quite a bit of more pushing around here and stuff to get that edge to come down. But that's my basic goal, is to start up here on the side so I give myself a little bit more room to play out here. So I start up here and then work my way down around it. And I don't do like a lot of people do where they'll just trace the note and keep doing that. I don't like to do that. I work the whole surface at once. So it might become a little bit confusing for you to watch, but just got to crap all over it. Anyway, let's just see if this will work. So basically, I don't know if you can see it, but basically I just put an edge, start pulling back on it, then pull this metal out so it has more room to go, and then push it down a little bit. So I'm going to do this around this edge, push all this metal out, and then that's already a lot flatter. So you know, at this point then I'm going to need to get this area down around here. So again, it's like when I'm doing this, I'm tilting so that I can use the corner to push this. And then when I come on the outside, I'm kind of doing the same thing. I'm kind of using the corner to push out and to get this metal to get out of the way so that it wants to lay flat. Because that's basically what I'm doing, is I'm pushing the interstitial to support this, or pushing the interstitial to support the note going flat. So if this is curled in this way, I need to get more metal here in the interstitial out of the way, or pushed down, so that this will have room to lay flat. So you got to watch the whole area as you're going, and you don't want to get folds or wrinkles or anything like that. So you want to keep making sure you're smoothing everything out as you're going. And as I'm working too, is I always actually come back around the note itself and kind of push it a little flatter. Like you'll get little bulges and stuff from where you're working. So it's good rule to just keep going and pushing it a little bit flatter if you see bulges and stuff like that, because it gives you a better perspective on when the note is actually flat. That note's already a lot closer. That note's a lot closer, and obviously still got to do some work on it, but I'm going to move on to the next one. And basically the way I like to do it I don't think this is anything that it has, you have to do, but I usually start on the lowest notes and work my way up to the highest note. I don't know why, but I feel like it helps when the overall shape of the pan if I do it that way, because there's a lot of more work that needs to be done on the lower notes than there has to be on the high notes. If you can look at the high notes, so they're already almost completely flat, so I don't really have to work on those much. Also, I'm really working when I'm up in this area is the overall shape of the hand pan. Because like I said, you want to keep compression throughout the whole thing. That's why you don't want to get wrinkles and stuff in here. And actually, I do have a couple of little wrinkles in here, but like as long as they don't get too pronounced, then it won't really matter. But like I said, you want to pay attention to stuff like that and make sure that it doesn't get wrinkled in too many places, because that will make your life hell towards the end of the pan. Also, because I want to keep notes, both of these notes like very even with each other, I don't want ever one note to be like more this way than this one. Like if this one's dipped, I do not want that. I want these to be very even at the point where they're the closest. I want them to look at the pan this way and see them perfectly even with each other. That way there's no, because like I said, if one's higher than the other, then you'll lack compression on the overall surface. Anyway. Oh, and yeah, and so the interstitial is very much connected to this note as well. So when I start to flatten this note out, I don't put very heavy pressure on my tracing. I use a lot of the interstitial to kind of even the interstitial out, and that kind of already makes the note want to go flat, though you have to watch it. important here is slow movements. If you move fast, like I said, you're going to well, I don't know if I told you that, but if you move quickly across the surface, you're going to get a bump or a dent, a dent, a dent, a dent, a dent. But if I go very slowly, then it's overlapping and it's just smoothing the surface, so you won't notice any dents. So you got everything that you do through this process should be very slow and smooth. I really like to do too is I really like to keep a nice fold on this edge. I know you guys are going to start off pretty much with that, but as you're doing your shaping and stuff, make sure you keep a very tight line against the very corner here, because the sharper this edge is the more the easier the pan holds compression. So it'll actually hold tune better if you're the term that they use is called doping the edge. And it's D-O-P-I-N-G, doping. But doping the edge is really making sure that this area here has a really nice tight corner. Anyway. On to the next note is now I'm pushing the interstitial, and this is allowing the whole entire area here to lay out even with this and to allow this note to go even flatter. And you're going to see me squirming quite a bit because my back is killing me. You know, and that's one thing that I use a lot too, that I don't know if you guys can figure out a way to transpose some lines on the surface or what, but I don't know if you can see these lines here that I got going across, but I have from every bolt to bolt I have a line going across, and then I have circles running out from there, and I use, that's what I use in order to sink my shells, to keep them round or to keep them in a shape that I want. But also when I'm shaping, I use a lot of looking at these lines, because these lines will show you so many different things about how smooth the surface is and everything like that. So I would suggest, if you guys can figure out a way to do it with a protractor or something, but figure out how to make some lines on there, because it gives you points of reference when you're shaping. Makes things a lot easier in my opinion. Oh, also there's another thing too, is that you guys will probably want to do this. I'm not really doing this until the end now, because it hurts me when I'm trying to put on my dimples. But put some oil on the surface as you're shaping, because the oil will all of a sudden, and just a thin coat, like put a little bit of oil on there and wipe it across the whole surface, because when you're using your hammer, you'll be able to see exactly where your hammer hit is dropping. So if I know exactly where my hammerhead is falling, then I know exactly what kind of a line that I'm putting and what it's going to look like on the other side. Without the oil on there, it's a little bit more difficult to kind of envision in your head. I've just been doing it for a long time, so it's not, doesn't really bother me anymore. But anyway, so yeah, definitely use some oil. Fairly close, so I'm just going to do a little bit more smoothing inside here, and then move on to the next one and start pushing the interstitial that way. Crap. Carried around that one. See, I don't like to get too far up before I start bringing the other side with it, because otherwise you get lopsided and do weird stuff, so I kind of just like to flow evenly. Like I said, you'll see me doing a lot of this, like walking around and messing around in all these different areas and stuff, and it's because I'm trying to keep that overall compression, which helps the notes go flat. And if you keep your notes flat, it helps you with the rest of the surface, keep everything nice and even as you're going along. Started to get a big wrinkle right there, so I gotta fix that. See, I'm trying to go a little slower for you guys so you can kind of like see what's going on. But I don't usually go this slow. I usually kind of just go around the whole pan and just kind of, you know, keep going and going and going until that way it keeps this stuff out. So I'm going to kind of hop ahead and go a little bit faster through this. lot of what I'm doing here too is a very nice and like soft hammering. I'm not really hitting the surface very hard. I'm just going very nice and easy because I'm testing the surface. I'm watching the dents, kind of what they're doing and stuff. So I'm solidifying the entire surface as a whole just by going very slowly and just hitting all this stuff very lightly. And you'll watch very little, like very soft hits do a lot. They move a lot of metal. You're not seeing it very much because your eye doesn't pay attention to it enough, or it's hitting too fast. So you want to make sure that you understand that when you're doing this stuff that it's moving a lot of metal, even if you're barely hitting it. So the better thing to do when smoothing and to get your surface smooth is to slow down, to very much slow down and take your pressure way down. I use a pedal to control my pressure. So I use a very, very low pressure and just kind of softly go around all the interstitial and tighten everything up. You'll notice that that is a very important part of the whole shaping process, is to keep the interstitial tight to support these notes and to support the compression that I'm going to be putting in the notes eventually. I hope that makes sense, because that's important. Getting little pieces of tape from my tape job here falling in there. Okay, so at this point everything's pretty damn close. Same thing, I'm just going to go around and smooth a little bit more real quick. going to do is I'm going to go one more time with the corner of this and push on just the line, or just outside of the line, inside, on the line, wherever. But I'm going to push on this. That way it basically, it's going to solidify the border of the note. So that so it's setting up for the next step, which is going to be hammering these in a little bit. But I'll show you that in a minute. Sometimes this process of this does straighten out the interstitial a little bit, so you can take this time to kind of get rid of some more of the lines and bumps. Sorry, this is just me being super anal about things. Alright, well, that's pretty close for what I want to do next. I'm going to cut this video, and we will be back.